Welcome back to the Pick 109 podcast, episode 42, NRL Finals Week 1. I'm here with Muzzy.
Hey.
Jake Mitchell.
What's up, everyone?
And Coxie D down the bottom.
Hey, boys.
How are we, gents? Another week of lockdown,
Good.
but a good weekend of footy.
Sure was. It was, there was some shocks, but just some shockers.
There was. Well, let's get into it. Friday night's first game of the round was the Storm 40 over the Seagulls 12. Did anyone see the scoreline blowing out like this?
No, because this game shot all my multis in the first half an hour. So I definitely didn't see it coming.
So you're up for 3,500 skips this week, mate.
Pretty much. Approaching 4,000 quickly.
I honestly thought this game could have gone either way, like in terms of the scoreline, and it went the other way compared to what I thought it might have gone.
Yeah. Cam Munster coming back in. I wasn't actually expecting him to play earlier on in the week with the leg infection. But he didn't really train a week, but he still managed to play the game. And he was huge because the way Melbourne just dominated the Seagulls, it was all about game plan and strategy and just executing that plan that was set. And there's no one better than Cam Munster at that. He was dominant, so they were sensational, Melbourne.
And they executed their game plan, I think, pretty much to perfection in terms of stopping Tommy Turbo. Like, he was very quiet that whole game, and once you nullify that, if that player, it's sort of, they didn't have a chance.
Yeah, especially when for Seagulls, that's all their attack is Tommy, isn't it? Like, he plays such a big part.
They played through him,
and obviously Melbourne stopped him pretty well. And they didn't really look like scoring many more points after 12, did they?
No.
Well, that was the thing, and then the costly errors, like I think it was that right edge of Morgan Harper, dropped the ball a few times, and I'm fairly sure Storm scored twice off those sort of mistakes too. So pretty poor from the Seagulls all around.
That's just finals footy, too. Like, you can't make those mistakes like you do in the regular season, so to speak. Like, you make those mistakes, and as we saw, like a team against Melbourne, they just capitalised straight away.
Yeah. And Storm came out that hot. Like, they were red hot from the get-go. Like, they were ready. And they scored those, 2 tries in the first 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And they were just out for blood straight away. So it showed the difference also in the players' experience in finals football, I think, as well.
Yeah. Well, Melbourne won 19 straight games. They lost 1. Yeah. And everyone sort of all of a sudden just doubted them, that they were actually going to be as good as they are. It's bizarre. They're amazing. And they're amazing for a reason. And there you go. There it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to Saturday night's first game. We had the Roosters 25 over the Titans 24.
Never in doubt.
Boys. As Snake put in the group chat, never in doubt, eh?
No, never. Not once.
I can assure you, everyone that's listening, Snako was shitting it hard. He was shitting bricks close to the end. When they dropped it,
puckered right up.
When they threw that ball over the sideline right at the death, like, was it just pure elation after that? Like,
look at the size of me. Do I look like a man? Do I look like a man that likes to sit down? Yes. I stood up for the whole last 10 minutes. I couldn't sit down, and then I was running around the house like an absolute muppet when we won.
Like a headless chook.
Yeah, like a headless chook. Yeah. Emma just was looking at me like, you're a weirdo. But it was so exciting, but it was a great game, to be honest. The Titans really played well. It was a good end of their season. Like, they're going to end on a high. Like, they gave it to a team. Should they have won? Probably. They probably could have won. Let's be honest, the Roosters didn't play great.
Yeah.
So.
That Dave Fafita try sort of to change everything.
Yeah. But it was blatant. That rule is black and white. Like, even though I don't agree with it in that sense, the rule's black and white for a reason. And
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't disagree with the call, but I think the momentum switch in how they felt about the call sort of changed everything, because it sort of felt like that they were just starting to turn the screws a little bit. Yeah. And I think if they score that, it's probably a very different game in terms of how they bounce back after that.
Yeah, that's probably the difference also, Muzz, between a team that's full of really young up-and-coming players that are going to be good in 5 years to a team that's won 2 comps like a year ago. You know what I mean? Like, that's the difference. Even though the Roosters got so many people out, you still had Teddy, you still had Josh Morris, you still had Jared, you still had Victor. They just steadied the ship. Whenever there was a concern, they just managed to be like, no, trust the process. And that's probably the difference in the end.
For the Titans, though, too, there was 2 incidences that really sort of, well, 2 things that I took from the game that really just sort of hurt them in the end was like their lack of experience, obviously, for that whole team not having played finals before, but also like costly errors or discipline, like at in really important times. So I think it was they had the Roosters right on their own line, and then Kevin Proctor gave a silly penalty away, and then they got another penalty straight after that, and then they scored. So, I mean, it's things like that that just really like put you on the back foot.
But I think for a team like the Titans, you know, like they just scraped in, didn't they, in the last game? Like they needed that last game win to get in, a few other teams to not win. But I think for a team that sort of just scraped in the finals, I think that's an awesome effort for them to pull that result out. And they could have, if that pass goes to Fafita or the winger, they win that game. That's it. It was just a pass away.
We all saw the footage of Corey Thompson just absolutely screaming at him for not giving the ball to Fafita. Like 5 meters out, he's nearly unstoppable.
Did you see him spraying Fafita during the game as well? He sprayed. He had 2 sprays. He sprayed Fafita once, and he sprayed him at the end too.
Yeah,
and they were both justified. And he's the most experienced player in that team, and it's hard to do that job from the wing.
Yeah, exactly.
Good on him, because it doesn't mean like just because Fafita's on $1 million a year, he's still a young player that
still needs
to be held accountable. You know what I mean? And for the veteran winger to be doing that, good on him, because the frustration was warranted, to tell you the truth. Like, he should have got that ball earlier. He probably scores in the corner, they win.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's simple, but he's allowed to show frustration.
Yeah.
The Titans.
I think something to keep an eye on. Oh, you go, Roscoe.
I was just about to say that the Titans now have a conundrum for next year too, in terms of what they do with Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson.
Yeah, I think Brimson goes to 6.
I would say so. Yeah,
he can play 6. I don't think Campbell can play 6, and you don't want him on a wing. You don't want him on an edge.
No.
So I think he'll go to 6, and Campbell will stay at 1.
No, very good.
Which is good, because they really need to fix a half issue.
Yeah.
They need a halfback still, but that could potentially fill one of the issue spots. So,
which will still win them games.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's move on to probably the biggest upset of the round was the Rabbitohs 16 over the Panthers 10. I think this is the best defensive performance I've seen the Rabbitohs do all year.
Yeah.
And I think all the momentum was behind them, because all the pressure was on the Panthers to win this game.
I think that pressure showed, because it just that little bit of flair, that little bit of creativity just seemed to be missing from the Panthers as well. Like, nothing to take away from the South. I think their defence was awesome, as you said, Roscoe, but I think there was still that little bit of that sharp edge that was just missing.
Well, it's, like you're saying, it's just those little 1%ers of just getting the ball at the right time.
Yep.
The amount of line breaks that the Panthers would have had in that game compared to the Rabbitohs to blow it open at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have had 2 or 3 more tries in them. So it's those little 1% things that cost them the game, really.
Yeah. And I think it just goes to show, how good of a coach Wayne Bennett is. Like, I mean, he's so experienced, and just to be able to bring South, considering, like, it wasn't that long ago that South just got towed up by the Panthers. And then
they got beat by 50, didn't they?
And then to come back from that game, and then the game earlier in the year where they got flogged, and then come back and do that in the finals, in the game where it counts the most, is just, I think it's awesome for South, and without Latrell as well.
Well, that was the biggest thing, and that's why I said all the pressure was on the Panthers, because Rabbitohs were without their star striker basically for the biggest final game of the year so far.
I don't know if you can read anything into it, but that's Nathan Cleary's first loss of the season. The last game he lost was the grand final. Like, they're starting to build a little bit of a stigma about big games and tough opponents. They had a pretty good run last year through the finals, but they played their worst football last year through the finals. They got lucky that they played a beat-up Roosters team. Who just been beaten by 60 against South, and they stuck it to them for 60 minutes. Like, they got lucky through that finals campaign, I thought, last year, Penrith. And it's a little bit concerning, to tell you the truth. So.
I definitely think so, and I think it's tough now. They've got to beat the Storm if they want to get into the final now. It's not only about next week; it's about the week after as well. So,
well, I don't think Parramatta are going to die wondering.
No.
Parramatta are the giant killers at the minute. They've beaten Melbourne twice, so they'll have no fear of big teams, Parramatta. So it's going to be interesting.
Exactly. I think the other thing too is, like, off that defense of the Rabbitohs, Adam Reynolds had one of his best games of kicking, but also Tom Burgess had an outstanding. It is the best game I've seen him play in probably 6 years. He well and truly stood up.
Adam Reynolds.
Over 200 meters, I think, for Tom Burgess.
Yeah, his numbers were sensational. Offload numbers and everything. Like, he's always had an error in his game, and he sort of didn't have that on the weekend. He was pretty good. So
it was the most effort I've seen out of him in a long time. So
the one thing for me, just going back to Adam Reynolds real quick, why did South let him go? Because this could be the best year he's ever played. Not just with the ball, or not with his kicking game, but with the ball in hand. They knew he needed to create more options, not having Latrell at the back, so more had to come through the halves. But his passing display on the weekend was sensational. Massive kudos to him.
We said it.
I think it's his best year of footy ever.
Oh, yeah. I would agree. And like we said it 8-10 weeks ago when he signed with the Broncos, that we're just like, what are the Rabbitohs thinking? Like,
we signed with them for similar money to what Chad Townsend signed with North Queensland.
Far out.
Put that one into perspective.
That's insane.
Please.
Two different sides of the scale too.
Yeah. Jeez.
Very good. Moving on to Sunday afternoon's game, the final game of the round. Eels 28 over the Knights 20. I so wanted the Knights just to pull it through, but they just have one too many mistakes in them, and ultimately
I wanted Newcastle to win, but I'm also glad the Parramatta won, because we get to see all their fans quit again. So like, all their fans quit every game. So like, the more hope Parramatta fans can get, just the bigger the fall. Like, seriously, it's Jared, the whole Urza family. That's a shout out to you guys. Seriously, Jared, get your shit together, mate. 2 minutes into a game is not the appropriate time to quit on your team. Rant over. Parramatta were good. I think that's Mitchell Moses' best game ever in a Parramatta jersey, at least.
Or in a final.
He's starting to, you think back, so he come out of Origin, and we said the one thing about Origin that he might get is like the experience of big games.
Yeah.
He hasn't had a heap. He come out of that with a broken back. He had a few weeks off to recover. He was a little bit scrappy, but then he played Melbourne, and he was the best on ground. He won that game against Melbourne. He had a week off where they got beat by Penrith, and then he turned up and he won them this game. Mitchell Moses at the minute, he is in red hot form. So I'm very excited for the Cleary Moses battle next week. I think I think that battle could determine the game.
I think for the Knights though too, just quickly, like a lot of them had niggling injuries in that game, and you could see that wear and tear sort of visible on the field. Like Clemmer, Tyson Frizzell. Tyson Frizzell should have been off the field.
He was cold. He was out cold.
Yeah. And I think they've copped a lot of scrutiny for that too. So, and rightly so. But good win for the Eels, and they move on to the big games next week.
He took that hit just quickly, and then about 2 minutes later, Parramatta scored in the corner, and he missed a one-on-one tackle there. So right. I don't actually know if they were better off him being out there or not. Like he got beat on the outside, and I feel like he makes that tackle. If he 9 times out of 10.
I think he would too.
Yeah,
even you could tell in like the last sort of 5 minutes or so, every time he'd run up the ball, he was almost getting smashed. Because
I reckon
there was like, I think his effort was there, but he wasn't in the right mind to do it. So every time he just ran up the ball, he was just getting knocked back. Like
I wouldn't be surprised if
any yards.
I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out he's got a syndesmosis injury or another type of ankle injury as well.
I think it's still his hip that's causing him the problems at the minute. And he's been battling through that ever since the preseason as well. So
hopefully now in the preseason they can look after him because he's vital to that team.
Big time.
Especially with no Pierce next year.
I will give a quick shout out to Regan Campbell-Gillard as well. He did 3 insane hits that put that much pressure on the Knights that they couldn't bounce back from.
Yeah.
So
it's just proved
they were all in the Knights half too, weren't they?
They're all in the 10 meters.
Yeah, I think so.
It proves the fact, but the big hit hasn't left the game. You've just got to have the right technique to be able to pull it off. And Campbell-Gillard, he pulled it off perfectly 3 times.
Get him into the Roosters camp for a bit, mate. He can teach Victor how to do it.
You just leave Victor alone, mate. Victor knows what he's doing.
He's a saint, that man.
As the game's going on.
Week 2 of the finals, we have the Seagulls up against the Roosters. This could be an absolute barnstorm of game.
Hey, Jay, I got a question for you, mate, as a fellow Roosters fan.
Yes.
What do you think about leaving Semi on the bench for the most part of the game that we've just watched? Do you think that sort of similar thing might happen in this game?
Is this Sammy Walker that you're talking about?
Sam Walker. Yeah. So I don't think it'll happen. And purely the reason is because I think Sam Verrills is going to get a week for his last shot.
Yeah, and Lamb will fill in there.
I reckon Lamb will push to 9 and Walker will go to 7. I said it last week. I think that Walker's the correct answer at 7. I understand what they're trying to do. For me, Lamb was a little bit too side to side. The Roosters are good when we look to go sideways and we straighten it up. And I think we're a little bit too side to side. I think if Walker can get out there and straighten us up in attack a little bit, it'll be better off.
Yeah.
Especially against Manly, I don't think you can try and go around them.
Yeah. And I think Lamb is, he's pretty dangerous at times when he just scoots out of that dummy half. Especially when it's a quick play the ball and the markers are sort of offside and he just scoots through the middle. And a lot of times you've seen him get those line breaks that way.
His form at the plate has been really good. I think he's a better 14 than he is 7.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I think he's a potential Origin player at 14, but he is never going to play Origin at 7. Does that make sense? For Queensland. So, just for danger long term, like, in all fairness, what chance do the Roosters have of winning the comp this year? Like,
very little.
Such a slim chance, right? Give Walker the experience because he could win us 4 comps in the next 10 years. And that, you know what I mean? Like, you at least win us 2 comps in 10 years.
Yeah.
But let's give him some finals experience now. So,
as you saw in that previous game, though, like, he had no trouble sitting on the bench for that long and then coming in at such a crucial time of the game and kick that field goal.
And I will say, if he didn't have the energy he had, that last try gets scored because he's the one that saves it. So he manages to get fended off, but he stays on his feet. That was the exciting bit. He stayed on his feet, made the tackle, and then was able to get up in the defensive line. Like, it was a tremendous effort. And if he played the whole game, I think he falls over off the fan.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets there, Titans score. So there is something to leaving it back on the bench because it saved us on the weekend. So.
No, very good. Moving on to Saturday afternoon's final game of the round, finals week 2, Panthers up against the Eels. We talked about it just before. This could possibly be one of the biggest games of the year.
Yeah, the weaknesses I've seen in Parramatta that I was a little bit worried about, Ray Stone at 9. I thought he was as solid as anyone out there defensively. Like he put on some massive hits as well as Regan Kemp-Gillard. They just don't match up well against Penrith. But but
it'd be interesting to see. I think if Penrith bounce back with a more sharper approach, a more creative approach in offense, or if they're going to go back to a more conservative approach and I don't know, hope to will themselves over the Parramatta. I think for their football, they've got to play a little bit more creative than what they did.
I think they'll have a nice, light, easy week this week, Penrith. I think they need to get the spring back. They were at their best footy when you could see them walking in with the boombox on the shoulder. And I think that's the Penrith we need to see this week if they're going to.
And I think they find it. I honestly think they'll just find it this weekend against the Eels. I think they'll be playing carefree, like they're having fun. They just look like a couple of kids having fun, at the park. So I think that's what we'll see.
I think the biggest thing for Parramatta too is like the thing that let them down against the Knights, particularly, was their handling errors. I think the completion rate was pretty poor. Like there's a fair few times that Nathan Brown dropped the ball dead cold right along the halfway line, so it gave the Knights a great opportunity to get back into the match. So if they can tighten that sort of stuff up, it'll be much closer.
Yeah. Also, too, like Melbourne rested all their players the last regular season game. Parramatta rested all theirs in this game against Penrith. Parramatta won that game against Newcastle because they were rested at the back end. They had a little bit more kick. Penrith at the end of the South game, they looked beaten.
Rat shit again.
They looked worn out. So it's been a long year. I know like a lot of them have missed footy through injury and whatever.
Yeah.
But Parramatta are a little bit fresher. I think they got a little bit more in the legs. So I think $4 is a really good price for Parramatta because I think it could be closer than what people are saying. I'm picking Penrith, but I think it'll be closer than people think.
Yeah. It's been a long year, especially with Origin. I mean, how many of those boys have backed up with Origin and
had their first Origin year?
Tough. Yeah.
Like Toto, Isaiah Yo, Luai, like they've all. And then Burton, he hasn't played a full year of NRL before. Like that's exhausting in itself. So
but again, if Penrith
there's a lot of footy in those legs.
Yeah. If Penrith can get those little like 1% things back in their game, they could score a lot of points too. So
100%.
I think they should be going into this game thinking that Parramatta are like right on their tail, if not equals.
Yeah.
So
I give Parramatta a really good chance.
I do too, actually.
Just to stick it to the Urza boys.
No, very good. Well, that's the wrap up of the NRL finals until next week, really.
Yeah.
Until we get the next week. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.